When the apocalypse arrived, I was clutching a ticket home. My mind filled with the aroma of New Year's Eve dinner. The northern city I was in was suddenly hit by a blizzard. The temperature plummeted off a cliff to -30 degrees Celsius. I had secretly rejoiced that I barely won the spring festival ticket-snatching war. But I never expected that this was merely the prelude to a freezing hell. At 4 p.m. on December 8, 2025, the train station entrance was jammed with an impenetrable crowd. Wearing my backpack and dragging my suitcase, I could barely move an inch in the dense sea of people. The sky was as gloomy as splashed ink. Heavy snow fell rapidly like goose feathers. To grab a seat in the waiting hall, I had arrived at the station 2 hours early. I never thought I'd be stuck right at the entrance. The snow was falling faster and faster, and the fierce wind whipped up snow pellets. The holiday travelers formed an endless wall of bodies. Complaints echoed one after another from the front. I heard all trains are delayed today. Who knows when they'll arrive? My wife just texted me. All trains heading to Yangshi are cancelled. This is the only line still running. This damn weather is colder than the dead of winter. Can't they just let us wait inside the hall? Mir sank. I frantically pulled out my phone to check my ticket. Surenog. The train I was supposed to take showed sails suspended. My phone battery was draining insanely fast in the cold. I quickly stuffed it into the inner pocket of my down jacket, holding it tightly with my palm. This was my only connection to the outside world. I couldn't let it die. I didn't want to miss my chance to go home. So I gritted my teeth and kept waiting in line. When I looked ahead from the corner of my eye, the freezing wind poured down my collar into my chest. I shivered violently. Finally, I let go of my suitcase, buried the lower half of my face in my collar, stuffed my hands into my pockets, and stood in place with my head down and eyes closed. My consciousness gradually blurred, and I almost fell asleep, standing up. I didn't know how long had passed when a violent shove came from behind. I stumbled 2 steps forward. The complaints in the line grew agitated. Just as I tried to steady myself, the crowd surged forward again. I swayed back and forth, unable to stand firm. My sense of danger awakened. I looked around and saw the crowd had completely lost order. Right at that moment, a scream came from the front. A girl was pushed to the ground. I shouted loudly. Someone fell. Stop pushing. Using the momentum of the pushing crowd, I crashed toward the left. And finally, struggled my way out of the line. The weather was getting even colder. I opened a ride-hailing app. There were over 200 people in the queue. My phone battery was at only 15%. I selected all vehicle types. I didn't care, even if the price doubled. Not far away, a kid tossed boiling water into the air. The hot water splashed upward, instantly turning into an icy mist. My scalp went numb. I quickly searched how cold it must be for boiling water to instantly freeze when my battery dropped to 2%. I got a call from the driver. It was a 6-seater commercial vehicle. By now, the sky had turned completely dark. Once in the car, I immediately charged my phone. I opened WeChat. A screenshot sent in my family group half an hour ago popped up. Due to extreme blizzard conditions, all flights and trains in the northern city were cancelled. I dialed their number. My parents were at the largest local farmers market. It was noisy on their end. I hastily said, I can't come home for New Year's this year. Take good care of yourselves. Then I hung up the phone. Extreme weather. Instant, freezing water, consoler flight. Putting all this information together, a terrifying thought became clear. Sir, I'll pay you double the fare. Take me to the largest outdoor supply store nearby first. There weren't many people at the store. Only 2 staff members were on duty. Please, give me the best cold weather sleeping bags you have. Winter coats, in all sizes from small to large. And portable stoves. Gas canisters, a fire axe for self-defense, and moisture-proof mats. All the cold resistance gear you have. Load up as much as I can carry. The clerk quickly helped me gather the goods. I took a picture of the receipt and sent it to the family group to let them know I was safe. There was too much stuff. So the clerk helped me carry it to the car. Before leaving, I warned her, sister, you should stock up on cold weather gear, too. This weather is not normal. She smiled and waved her hand. Thanks, miss. It shouldn't be that serious. It'll pass after the new year. I didn't try to persuade her further and turned to get in the car. Back in the car, I planned my supplies based on basic survival needs. I opened a food delivery app to stock up on food. Several large supermarkets showed insufficient delivery capacity. Other stores were also fully booked. Fortunately, because of the previous pandemic lockdowns, enough food to last 3 months. I left a message for my family. I'm safe too. I'm stocking up on supplies. Then I asked the driver to head to a nearby pharmacy. When we arrived at the pharmacy, the staff was packing up, preparing to close. I bought 4 boxes of heat packs, 2 first aid kits, fever reducers, cold defragment, and even basic medication for cardiovascular diseases. I hastily paid and left. By now, the snow outside was so heavy I couldn't see the road. Seeing the car full of supplies I had hoarded, the driver's face turned pale. No matter how much extra money I offered, he refused to change the route. He just wanted to drop me off and go home quickly. After getting out, the driver kindly helped me carry the supplies to the building entrance. Miss, this weather is wickedly dangerous. Hurry home and lock your doors and windows. Don't go out anymore. I wanted to give him one of the winter coats, but he waved his hand to refuse. Keep it for yourself. If something really bad happens, 1 coat won't make a difference anyway. As long as I can be with my family, that's enough. Arriving home, the warmth of the room revived my spirits. I touched the radiator. It was still hot. I quickly boiled a packet of instant noodles. After just 2 bites, a video call from my family popped up. On screen, my parents were showing off the supplies they hoarded. Your place can't compare to our hometown. Once you have enough stuff, don't go out. Keep warm. Stay safe. After hanging up, I sprang into action. I used silicone sealant to block the window gaps. Then taped a layer of plastic sheeting over the windows for insulation. I pitched a tent right on my bed, placing it as close to the radiator as possible. I piled the rest of the supplies beside the bed. Finally, I organized my food and water. I would eat the fresh food first, then the canned goods, self-heating meals, and save the rice, flour, and oil for last. As for water, besides the bottled water, I filled every container I could find with tap water, just in case the water supply was cut off. After taking inventory of my food and water, I had enough to last me 3 or 4 months. By the time I finished packing, it was 2 a.m. I set an alarm for 6 a.m., planning to try and grab some more supplies on the delivery apps. Then I opened a short video app to scroll. At first, it was all Spring Festival content. Then I saw a snowy video posted by a user in Hainan, with the caption, "My goodness, it's snowing in Hainan." In the comments, some were amazed, others were complaining. Refreshing the feed, it was all videos of the temperature drop nationwide. People in Guangdong wearing thick coats to roast oranges. Netizens up north showing boiling water, freezing midair. Although folks in the northeast said they were used to the cold. Some still admitted this winter was exceptionally freezing. Looking at all this, I suddenly felt the extreme cold wasn't as terrifying. With all of humanity facing it together, the loneliness and fear seemed to be shared. At 6 a.m., I managed to snatch some high-energy biscuits, chocolates, and batteries online. I finally breathed a sigh of relief. I touched the radiator again. It wasn't as hot as last night. I crawled into my tent and lay down, quickly falling asleep. When I woke up next, I was freezing. I checked my phone, it was already 4 p.m. The temperature in Haidian district had dropped to minus 39 degrees. My WeChat groups were buzzing about the global freeze. Some complained they couldn't buy any supplies. The supplies I bought in the morning were still out for delivery, severely delayed. This was to be expected. Enregistrok. So I climbed out of my sleeping bag to cook. I touched the radiator next to the tent. It was barely warm. The signs of insufficient heating were obvious. I brought an induction cooker and a few packs of noodles to my bedroom. Once the noodles were done, I took a big gulp of the hot broth. The chill inside my body gradually faded. Just as I finished eating and was about to clean the pot, there was a sudden, violent pounding on my security door. My nerves immediately tensed up. I tiptoed quietly to the door. I rarely invited friends over. Almost no one knew I lived here. Outside the window, heavy snow was flying. The freezing wind carried sleet, smacking against the glass with a harsh, piercing sound. In this kind of weather, who would come knocking? I like reading apocalyptic survival novels. So I knew that, in special circumstances, scarcity of resources easily leads to conflicts. But wasn't this happening a bit too soon? The abrupt knocking made me more vigilant than usual. I held my breath, stood on my tiptoes, and looked through the peephole. It was too dark outside. I could only see a blurry figure. The knocking grew more urgent, even carrying a hint of impatience. I suddenly realized, with all this noise, if it attracted other residents to come out and look, it would be even more troublesome. I quickly went to the kitchen, grabbed something for self-defense, and only then walked back to the door. I deliberately raised my voice, trying to make myself sound more confident. "What's wrong with you, girl? I've been knocking forever, and you wouldn't open the door." I was stunned. I didn't expect the other party's tone to be even tougher than mine. The community is organizing snow clearing volunteers. If you participate, you get a jug of cooking oil and a carton of eggs. Do you want to sign up? Half an hour later, wrapped in my thickest down jacket, wearing a hat and gloves, I stood in the snow clearing team downstairs. Most people in the community were elderly left-behind residents. The team leader was Auntie Wong, who had just knocked on my door. She held a megaphone, assigning tasks. Her voice drifted far in the snowstorm. At first, everyone was highly motivated, and we quickly cleared a path through the snow at the building entrance. But the snow kept getting heavier. The area we just swept was covered again in the blink of an eye. Auntie Wong received a notice from the community office telling everyone to take their supplies and go home for now and resume work when the snow lightened up. Once home, I took off my down jacket. The snow I shook off formed a small pile on the floor mat. I quickly boiled a pot of hot water and crawled into my tent. Winters in the north are inherently cold, but this year's weather was completely abnormal. I had to warm up for quite a while before I finally recovered. I glanced at my phone. It was already past 5 p.m. I rummaged through the fridge and took out a bag of frozen dumplings. Just as the pan-fried dumplings were ready, a news notification popped up on my phone. Tonight at 7 p.m., meteorologists would hold a live broadcast to explain this extreme temperature drop. I originally wanted to watch the stream while eating, but when I opened several streaming platforms, they all showed network congestion. I tried several times but couldn't get in. I had to settle for playing a TV drama I hadn't finished as background noise. After eating the dumplings, I scrolled on my phone and saw that the extreme cold weather was trending. Many regions nationwide issued severe cold warnings. Home survival guide. Communities distribute cold supplies. These keywords dominated the trending list. I clicked on the home survival guide, which advised stocking up on ginger, brown sugar, and common medicines. It also mentioned insulating water pipes against freezing. I immediately took screenshots to save it, comparing it to the supplies checklist in the guide. Première hésitated. The nearest supermarket from the neighborhood was only a 5-minute walk. Should I go now to restock some supplies? I checked the current temperature. Minus 39 degrees. It was expected to drop to minus 46 at night. In such cold weather, going out was indeed dangerous. But thinking about the experts on the broadcast saying this deep freeze might last for half a year, I decided to go out. I dug out all my thermal clothing. I put on my thickest down jacket over everything, put on a wool hat and a mask, leaving only my eyes exposed. I wore gloves on my hands, fleece-lined winter boots on my feet, and stuck to heat packs inside my boots. Finally, I took a small knife for self-defense. I pushed the door open. The window in the hallway wasn't closed tight. The freezing wind poured in, making me shiver violently. When I reached the community gate, première réalised. The situation outside was much worse than I imagined. The blizzard made the streetlights sway. Visibility was less than 5 meters. Cars were lined up endlessly on the road. The red brake lights stretching all the way to the intersection. Occasional frantic honks pierced the air. I walked, hugging the side of the road, trying to avoid the vehicles. The wind whipped the sleet against my face, stinging like little pebbles. I didn't dare to stop, quickening my pace toward the supermarket. The supermarket was brightly lit and packed with people. I squeezed my way in to look. The instant food on the shelves, like instant noodles, had already been wiped out on the very bottom shelf. There were a few packs of high-energy biscuits and canned goods left. I quickly tossed them into my basket. By the time I left the supermarket, it was completely dark. The blizzard was even more ferocious than before. Once home, it took me nearly 10 minutes to recover before I could unpack what I had bought. I touched the radiator. It was ice cold. I opened my phone, and the temperature had dropped to minus 52 degrees. The homeowners group chat had completely exploded. Everyone was asking when the heating would be restored. I was in no mood to read the group messages, so I went to the kitchen to find something to eat. I turned the faucet. The water was cut off too. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. Première walquée d'ouvert. Looked through the peephole and saw it was Auntie Wang. She was holding a bag of rice with several cardboard boxes sitting by her feet. I quickly opened the door. Auntie Wang walked in, blowing on her hands to warm them, and handed the rice to me. The community distributed some supplies to every household. This is yours. I quickly thanked her. Auntie Wang waved her hand. The community office wants each building to pick a building manager to be responsible for registering resident, tallying supplies, and reporting problems promptly. I think Sister Lee, from 300 to downstairs, is quite suitable. Première no dead. Saying that was fine. Auntie Wong then reminded me. Sister, Lee will come to register your info in a bit. Please cooperate with her. The heating has stopped now. Everyone needs to look out for each other. If you have any difficulties, just tell us. After speaking, she picked up the rest of the supplies and headed upstairs. I closed the door, feeling a bit uneasy. I usually left early and came home late, so I didn't know my neighbors at all. Now, with this registration, would it expose the amount of supplies I had? Less than 10 minutes later, the knock on the door came again. I looked through the peephole. It was a woman in a black overcoat. When she saw me open the door, she said, "Hello, I'm Li Mei from 302. I'm the building manager now. I'm here to register some information." I stepped aside to let her in, but she waved her hand. "No need. We can just do it at the door." She pulled out a notebook. Name, contact info, and how many people live here. I gave her my name and contact info, and told her I lived alone. She carefully wrote it down. "It's cold, don't go out much. If you need anything, come find me at 302. After saying that, she pulled a slip of paper from her pocket. It had her phone number on it. "This is my number. ITGAT 124/7. I took the paper, thanked her, and closed the door. But after a while, I didn't hear her knock on any other doors. I walked back to the peephole, only to see her standing right in front of 903 across the hall. She hesitated to knock. An elderly couple lived in 903. I had some impression of them. When I used to go to work early, I would see them doing Tai Chi downstairs together. Li Mei was delaying her knock, which puzzled me. Then I saw her pull out a bunch of keys from her pocket and try to insert one into their lock. My heart skipped a beat. Why would she have the keys to 903? Right at that moment, the door of 903 opened. It was the old lady who opened it. "Zhao Li, you came all the way up in this freezing weather." Li Mei smiled. "Auntie, the community asked me to register some information. I came to check on you and Uncle." Listening to their conversation, I learned that the couple's children couldn't make it back due to the weather. So, it was just the two elders living there. After Li Mei finished registering their info, she repeated the same speech she had given me, and then turned to leave. But I still felt uneasy. Why did she have the keys to 903? I tied a broomstick to my door handle, so that if someone tried to force the door open, it would offer some resistance. Over the next week, Li Mei from 300 came to knock on my door very punctually every day. I would occasionally chat with her. From her, I learned that there weren't many residents left in this building. No more than 10 people in total. She said she lived alone too, and her kids and family were in another city. After she left, I got a pen and paper to do the math. Besides Li Mei in 302, the old couple in 903, and me in 902. Based on her habit of knocking on 0 to first, then 01, and finally 03 on each floor, the resident on the 8th floor likely lived in 803. The first and second floors were buried in snow, so they were definitely empty. Li Mei would head downstairs after checking the 9th floor, which meant the floors above were empty too. There was also a young couple in the building. Calculating all this, at least 2 floors among the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th were vacant, although there were fewer people than I thought. I finally had a grasp of the overall situation. Before I could even relax, the power in the neighborhood suddenly went out. The moment the power died, the surrounding temperature plummeted. I huddled under my blankets covered in heat packs. But in the face of this extreme cold, the heat packs were virtually useless. It wasn't until dawn that I finally brought myself to use the portable stove to boil water. I counted my remaining gas canisters. A chill ran down my spine. I only had about 20 left. Even using just 3 a day, they would only last a week. While I was still wrapped in blankets, stressing over the blackout, the knock on the door sounded again. In this freezing weather, why was she still coming to register? I stepped lightly to the door. Looking through the peephole, I saw her. But her strange expression and her lingering at the door planted a seed of doubt in my mind. I picked up the knife I kept by the door, held my breath, and watched, wanting to see if she would leave when she got no answer. A sudden gust of cold wind blew through the hallway. The door of 903 slowly creaked open a crack. Leaving the door open in this freezing weather was an ominous sign. Alarm bells rang wildly in my head. I stared intensely through the peephole when Li Mei turned around to close that door. The cotton shoes she was wearing came into view. They were the exact same shoes the old lady from 903 wore. Thinking of the elderly couple in 903, tears welled up in my eyes. I clenched my jaw tightly, not daring to make a single sound. After she closed the door, she quietly returned to my door and slowly pressed her ear against it. Knowing we were separated by just a single door, my body trembled uncontrollably. Seeing that I still hadn't made a sound, she waited another minute, but eventually succumbed to the cold and went downstairs. Reason told me that after calling the cops, I shouldn't get involved, but a minute later, I still opened my door. The cold wind rushed in fiercely. Gripping my knife, I stepped out. The security door of 903 was propped open with a stone. It seemed she hadn't finished looting the place, so she hadn't locked the door. I pushed open the door to 903. The room was very neat. A family portrait of the old lady hung on the wall. She and her husband were lying face down on the kitchen floor, clearly victims of an attack. The murders happened after the blackout. Before that, she had been coexisting peacefully with us. It was obviously the blackout that provoked her, but why did she target 903? I had analyzed it before. The 9th floor might have the most residents in the building. Attacking us here carried a much higher risk. If the 3 of us joined forces to fight back, she would likely be killed instead. Unless she was lying. There were no other residents in the building, like she said. In fact, we might be the only 3 people left. Thinking of this, every hair on my body stood up again. The draft hitting my back unknowingly died down. I sensed something wrong and violently turned my head. She had returned at some point, standing right behind me. I glared fiercely, raised my kitchen knife, and roared as I slashed toward her. I must have looked terrifying, because her face drained of color. She turned and bolted down the stairs. I kept screaming as I rushed out of 903. Then unlocked my own door and hid back in my apartment. She didn't expect me to just retreat to my apartment like that. And I didn't expect her to actually come back later. About an hour passed. First, she knelt outside my door, crying about how hard life was for her. When I didn't respond, she took out a knife and started hacking at my door. The hallway echoed with the harsh bang of her chopping. I yelled from inside, "You killed them." "What exactly do you want? Li Mei let out a manic, bizarre laugh. Give me some supplies. After hesitating for a moment, I asked, how am I supposed to give them to you? How do I know? You won't try to kill me the moment I open the door. I'll go downstairs. You leave the stuff outside the door. Premier agrède. A plan slowly formed in my mind. I pretended to go get supplies, but instead picked up a basin of freshly boiled water. Taking a deep breath, I opened the door. Just as I expected, she was hiding right behind the fire door. Seeing me open the door, she immediately lunged at me with her knife. I was fully prepared for this, and splashed the basin of boiling water directly onto her head. The scalding water made her scream, jump, and writhe on the ground. I quickly followed up by kicking her hard, then immediately slammed the door shut. The extreme tension left me utterly exhausted. The snow outside was still falling. Li Mei wouldn't be able to bother me anytime soon. Eventually, I fell into a deep sleep. I slept like a log. Vaguely, I heard the sound of an ambulance siren. I thought for a moment that I hadn't survived this bitter winter. Forcing my eyes open, the ambulance siren was still blaring. I ran to the window and saw medics downstairs. Police officers, and even in this freezing weather. Nosy neighbors from other buildings standing around to watch. I saw the paramedics load her onto a stretcher. She was still alive. Later, I was taken to the police station for questioning. It turned out the imposter, Li Mei, actually lived in 202. Her usual lifestyle meant she hadn't hoarded any supplies at all. The real owner of 300 pitied her. So she invited her to stay in her apartment. But as the snow grew heavier and supplies became scarce, the woman from 200 grew greedy. Conflicts escalated between her and the real owner. Eventually, she murdered her. The first time might have been a crime of passion, but later, impersonating the owner to act as the building manager was a premeditated scheme. About 3 days later, electricity and signal were finally restored. Taking my remaining supplies with me, I was relocated to a nearby shelter. I was the only one left in that building. The shelter was a much better choice for me. The bitter winter is still ongoing, but surviving is the only hope.